In 2018, a dedicated team of geneticists at Stanford University brought to completion a monumental study, a project that had spanned nearly 2 decades of relentless field research. Their work involved meticulously collecting DNA samples from more than 8,000 individuals, spanning across every inhabited continent on Earth. This vast collection included genetic material from hunter-gatherers surviving in the remote Kalahari Desert, fishermen living isolated lives on secluded Pacific islands, farmers tending their ancient terraced fields in the highlands of Peru, and nomadic herders traversing the harsh, unforgiving plains of central Mongolia. The primary objective of this highly ambitious research was to rank human populations based specifically on the proportion of foreign DNA they carried. Essentially, scientists wanted to map exactly how much genetic mixing had occurred within each group, and conversely, how much of their original genetic signature had remained entirely unchanged. For years, the vast ocean of data was processed, analyzed, and cross-referenced in sterile laboratories. But when the study's results were finally published, the ranking sent absolute shockwaves, stunning the scientific community and the public alike with their completely unexpected conclusions. The very groups most people commonly perceived as genetically pure or homogeneous turned out, surprisingly, to be among the most extensively mixed populations on the planet. The hard data thoroughly contradicted centuries of deeply ingrained historical assumptions. Conversely, those populations that achieved the highest scores for genetic continuity, meaning their DNA had stayed remarkably close to that of their ancient ancestors, were absolutely not the ones anyone would have predicted. The researchers double-checked their data, assuming it must be a massive error. It wasn't. In fact, the #1 result on this extraordinary list originated from a place so completely obscure that most people would struggle to locate it on a map. Today, we embark on a journey through every tier of this ranking, exploring who mixed the most, who barely mixed at all, and crucially, why the revelation of the Earth's purest population astonished even the very scientists who made the historic discovery. If this journey into human origins captivates your interest, please consider hitting the subscribe button. We delve into a new genetic study every week. Now, before we plunge into the specifics of these rankings, it's essential to grasp precisely what these scientists were measuring, because the term pure is frequently tossed around in public discourse, and it almost never aligns with what people imagine it means. Every single human being alive on Earth today shares a common ancestor who lived approximately 200,000 years ago in East Africa. This isn't a theory or an opinion. It's a fundamental fact consistently confirmed by every major DNA study conducted over the past 3 decades. From that single point of origin, small groups of early humans began a gradual outward migration. Some journeyed north into the Levant and subsequently into Europe. Others pushed eastward, traversing India and extending into Southeast Asia. A courageous few crossed the ancient Bering Land Bridge into the Americas, while others navigated the vast open oceans to eventually reach Australia and the Pacific Islands. As these groups progressively separated and settled in diverse new environments, their DNA began to subtly drift. Random mutations accumulated over generations, and different traits gained dominance or receded based on factors like local climate, available food sources, and the unique diseases they encountered. Over tens of thousands of years, these isolated populations gradually developed distinct genetic signatures. It's crucial to understand that these are not different species, nor do they represent different races in any biological sense. Rather, they are simply statistical clusters of genetic variation that scientists can now analyze and interpret, much like reading a historical passport. What the Stanford team specifically quantified was a metric they termed genetic continuity. This measurement assessed how much of a modern population's DNA could be directly traced back to the original founding group of that particular region, as opposed to how much had been introduced through various external influences, such as migration, conquest, slavery, trade, and intermarriage over the course of centuries. A population exhibiting high genetic continuity, therefore, has largely remained isolated. Their ancestors did not extensively intermix with outsiders. Conversely, a population with low continuity has historically served as a demographic crossroads, a place where empires marched through, traders established settlements, refugees sought sanctuary, and conquerors eventually settled down. And here is where my findings become truly compelling. The regions we commonly perceive as the most extensively mixed often yielded the most surprising results, while those we typically consider homogeneous frequently conceal centuries of unacknowledged and profound migration. Let's begin our descent at the bottom of the ranking, examining the populations that carry the most foreign DNA. At number 20 on the list, situated near the very bottom of the genetic continuity scale, was a finding that came as little surprise. Latin America emerged as the most genetically blended landmass on Earth. The average individual in nations like Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, or across the Caribbean typically carries DNA originating from three primary continental sources: Indigenous American, European, and West African. In certain countries, such as the Dominican Republic, the average citizen possesses genetic markers from all three groups in remarkably equal proportions. This extensive blending was, emphatically, not a slow, organic, or natural process. Instead, it was the direct and often brutal consequence of 5 centuries of forced contact, beginning with the Spanish and Portuguese colonization that commenced in 1492. This was compounded by the horrific Atlantic slave trade. The profound result is a continent where genetic purity, in any meaningful sense, simply ceased to exist. However, what truly astonished the researchers was not Latin America's overall score itself. Rather, it was the remarkable extent to which indigenous DNA had survived against overwhelming odds. Despite centuries of catastrophic population collapse brought about by disease, despite brutal forced labor systems, and despite relentless cultural erasure, the distinct genetic signature of pre-Columbian peoples remained unequivocally detectable in over 70% of the DNA samples analyzed. Mexico, in particular, demonstrated strikingly strong indigenous continuity, with some regions in Oaxaca and Chiapas registering over 90% native ancestry. The widespread mixing was undeniably real and profound, but the original indigenous DNA had not vanished. Instead, it had been resiliently layered, persisting beneath the subsequent contributions. Occupying the 19th position on the ranking was the United States, the nation that proudly built its identity around the concept of a melting pot proved, genetically speaking, to be precisely that. African Americans, on average, carry approximately 24% European ancestry. White Americans, while often perceiving themselves as purely European, carry small yet measurable amounts of Native American and African DNA. The diverse Latino population can exhibit genetic contributions from 5 or 6 different continental groups. Even the so-called founding population has gradually blended. Yet none of this was genuinely unexpected. The American result was not the surprise. The true astonishment came with the very next entry on the list. At number 18 sat a country that most people would instinctively have placed much higher on any scale of genetic purity: the United Kingdom. Modern English people often tend to envision themselves as direct descendants of a singular ancient stock, perhaps the original Britons, or more commonly, the Anglo-Saxons who arrived in the 5th century. However, the DNA tells a far more intricate and dynamic story. The average English person today carries genetic contributions from at least 7 distinct ancient populations. This includes the elusive pre-Celtic hunter-gatherers, the Neolithic farmers who migrated from Anatolia, the Bronze Age steppe migrants who swept in from what is now Ukraine, the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, the Normans, and more recently, immigrants from the vast former empire. One of the most fascinating revelations from the British samples was that the much-touted Anglo-Saxon migration, which historians once dramatically described as a complete population replacement, actually contributed only about 40% of modern English DNA. The original Celtic population, therefore, was not wiped out. Rather, they were absorbed and integrated. Modern English DNA is, in essence, a complex layered cake, bearing the genetic imprint of virtually every significant group that ever crossed the English Channel. The very notion of a pure Anglo-Saxon bloodline is, genetically speaking, an undeniable fiction. Taking the 17th spot was Spain, and its genetic narrative proves to be even more dramatic. Spanish DNA carries substantial contributions from North African Berber populations, a profound and direct legacy of nearly 800 years of Moorish rule that stretched from 711 AD to 1400 AD. To this rich tapestry, one must add the enduring influence of the Roman occupation, the Visigothic kingdoms, the ancient Phoenician trading colonies, and the vibrant Jewish communities that thrived in Iberia for over a millennium before their expulsion. Consequently, the modern Spaniard carries a mosaic of genetic markers originating from across the entire Mediterranean basin. The category of pure Spanish as an isolated, unmixed lineage never genuinely existed. Number 16 was Russia. Russian DNA vividly demonstrates clear genetic contributions from a multitude of groups, including Slavic, Finnic, Baltic, Mongol, Turkic, and Caucasian populations. Centuries of expansive territorial growth across Eurasia, combined with the profound impact of the Mongol invasions and the subsequent absorption of dozens of indigenous peoples, produced a population that is genetically far more diverse and heterogeneous than its contemporary political identity might suggest. The well-known phrase, "scratch a Russian and find a Tatar," exists for a profoundly valid historical reason. And remarkably, the DNA evidence overwhelmingly backs it up. Positions 15 through 12 on the ranking were exclusively occupied by populations of the Indian subcontinent. India scored remarkably low on genetic continuity, not due to recent extensive mixing with foreign populations, but because the subcontinent itself has served as a dynamic meeting point and crucible for countless ancient populations for an astonishing period spanning over 50,000 years. This ancient blending involves South Indian Dravidians, North Indian Aryans, Tibetan-related groups in the Northeast, and Persian-influenced communities in the Northwest, among many others. Paradoxically, the rigid caste system over millennia did preserve some degree of genetic isolation within specific internal groups. However, the overarching genetic picture of the subcontinent is one of constant, deep-seated, and ancient blending. Number 11 brought forth a result that genuinely caught everyone off guard: Germany. The German genome is, in fact, far more extensively mixed than the country's modern, often idealized, national image suggests. Beneath what might be perceived as a singular Germanic substrate lies a complex layering of Celtic DNA, significant Slavic DNA, resulting from centuries of eastward expansion and intermarriage, lingering Roman influence prominently in the south, and substantial contributions from medieval Jewish, Polish, and Czech populations. This genetic reality starkly illustrates that the genetic borders of Europe rarely align with or respect its political borders. For instance, a person from Eastern Germany often shares more ancestral DNA with an individual from Western Poland than they do with someone from Western Germany. Italy secured the 10th spot on the list. Italians represent one of the most genetically diverse populations within all of Europe. A Sicilian, for example, can exhibit greater genetic difference from a Milanese individual than a Pole does from a Greek. This profound internal diversity is largely attributable to Italy's unique geographical position as a crucial crossroads of the Mediterranean. Historically, Greek, Phoenician, Etruscan, Latin, Germanic, Norman, Arab, and Byzantine populations have all contributed their genetic legacies to the modern Italian gene pool. Consequently, there isn't a singular, monolithic Italian DNA. Instead, there are dozens of distinct regional Italian DNAs, each possessing its own unique and rich historical narrative. From this point upward in the ranking, the narrative begins to shift significantly as the populations encountered start to demonstrate truly remarkable genetic continuity. Number 9 on the ranking was Iran. Despite the powerful Arab conquests of the 7th century, despite the devastating Mongol invasions of the 13th century, and despite various Turkic migrations and profound Greek cultural influence dating back to Alexander the Great, modern Iranians exhibit remarkably strong genetic continuity with the ancient Persians. Approximately 75% of the Iranian genome can be definitively traced back to populations that inhabited the Iranian plateau over 4,000 years ago. While the cultural and political transformations throughout Iran's history were undeniably massive and sweeping, the corresponding genetic changes were surprisingly minimal. Ireland claimed the 8th position, while the English genome, as we've seen, was extensively layered with successive waves of invasions and migrations. The Irish population managed to preserve a much higher percentage of their original Celtic and pre-Celtic DNA. Geography played a decisive role in this preservation. The island was historically harder to reach, more challenging to conquer, and more difficult to permanently hold. Consequently, the Viking and Norman influences, though real and impactful, never truly overwhelmed the native population's genetic composition. The Great Famine of the 1840s and the subsequent mass emigration also paradoxically contributed to preserving the genetic signature of those who remained. Remarkably, modern Irish DNA still strongly resembles the genetic material found in 5,000-year-old burial sites discovered across the island. Finland was ranked 7th. The Finns stand out as one of the most genetically distinct populations in Europe. Their language, unlike most European tongues, is not Indo-European. Instead, it belongs to the Uralic family, alongside Estonian and Hungarian. Their DNA powerfully reflects this linguistic and cultural uniqueness. Finnish people carry specific genetic markers that connect them more closely to ancient Siberian populations than to their immediate European neighbors. Centuries of relative geographical isolation, coupled with a relatively small founding population, endowed Finland with one of the highest genetic continuity scores in all of Europe. In fact, geneticists frequently utilize the Finnish population as a valuable reference group for studying rare hereditary diseases, precisely because their genome is so exceptionally well preserved, making specific mutations far easier to track and understand. Number 6 on the list was the Basque people, an enigmatic population residing in northern Spain and southwestern France. The Basques are, quite literally, a genetic puzzle. Their language has no known linguistic relatives anywhere in the world. Their DNA unequivocally reveals them to be one of the oldest continuous populations in Europe, with genetic roots stretching back to the original hunter-gatherers who inhabited the continent long before the advent of the agricultural revolution. While nearly every other European population was profoundly reshaped by the significant Bronze Age migrations from the Eurasian steppe, the Basques largely remain genetically untouched and isolated. They are, in a profound and tangible genetic sense, the closest living link to pre-Indo-European Europe. In the 5th position were the Sardinians. The island of Sardinia, situated off the coast of Italy, has historically functioned as a remarkable genetic refuge for thousands of years. Its rugged, mountainous interior proved exceedingly difficult for invaders to conquer and control, allowing its population to remain largely isolated even as the surrounding Mediterranean basin was repeatedly invaded, conquered, and resettled by numerous empires. Consequently, Sardinian DNA is the closest living match to the genetic material of the early Neolithic farmers who first introduced agriculture to Europe over 8,000 years ago. When scientists sequenced the genomes of Bronze Age skeletons unearthed in southern Europe, the closest modern population match is almost invariably Sardinian. Number 4 was the Ainu of Japan. It's crucial to specify that this refers not to the mainstream Japanese population, but to the indigenous Ainu people of Hokkaido. The Ainu are genetically distinct from both the Japanese and the Koreans, carrying ancient DNA that directly links them to the Jomon people, who were the original inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago long before the arrival of rice-farming migrants from the Asian mainland, approximately 2,500 years ago. Today, fewer than 25,000 individuals identify as Ainu, yet their unique genetic signature represents one of the oldest continuous human lineages in East Asia. They are, in a profoundly poignant sense, the living genetic memory of a Japan that existed before the Japan we recognize today. The third position on the ranking was occupied by the San people of Southern Africa. The San, sometimes referred to as Bushmen, are not merely genetically pure in the sense of having mixed less than other populations. They are something far more significant and fundamental. Their DNA contains the deepest genetic roots of all living humans on Earth. Every other human population across the globe, including all other African populations, branched off from a common ancestor more recent than the San did. The San speak unique languages that incorporate distinctive click sounds. Their hunter-gatherer culture preserves practices that may date back an astonishing 70,000 years. When geneticists meticulously construct the intricate human family tree, the San consistently sit closest to its very trunk. And perhaps the most astounding fact about them is that their genetic diversity within their own small population is greater than the combined genetic diversity of all non-African populations on Earth. They are not a mere relic of the past. They are, in essence, the fundamental source from which much of humanity sprang. Number 2 on the ranking was the Yamato Japanese. The mainstream Japanese DNA displays extraordinary genetic continuity. After the arrival of the rice-farming Yayoi migrants from the Asian mainland, and their subsequent mixing with the indigenous Jomon population around 2,500 years ago, the genetic composition of Japan largely stabilized and underwent very little further change. The unique island geography of Japan, combined with extended periods of self-imposed isolation, particularly evident during the Edo period from 1603 to 1868, effectively prevented significant foreign DNA from entering the existing gene pool. As a result, modern Japanese people carry a genome that is approximately 90% unchanged from that of their ancestors 2 millennia ago. While Korean and Chinese populations also demonstrate impressive genetic continuity, Japan's pronounced island geography likely pushed its score slightly higher, securing its remarkable position. And then, finally, at number 1, emerged the result that absolutely no one had predicted. The most genetically pure population on Earth, according to the rigorous Stanford ranking, was not found in Europe, nor in East Asia, nor in any of the regions one might instinctively guess. It was the Andamanese. The Andaman Islands constitute a small, remote archipelago nestled in the Bay of Bengal. Though technically a part of India, they are geographically much closer to Myanmar and Thailand. The indigenous tribes inhabiting these islands, particularly the Sentinelese, the Jarawa, the Ongji, and the Great Andamanese, represent the most genetically isolated human populations on the entire planet. Their DNA tells a story so ancient, so incredibly deep, that it borders on the mythological. The ancestors of the Andamanese were among the very first groups of modern humans to venture out of Africa, a momentous migration that occurred approximately 60,000 years ago. They embarked on an epic journey, migrating along the southern coastline of Asia until they reached the vast expanse of the Bay of Bengal. There they settled on the Andaman Islands, and crucially, their journey effectively ended. They never moved again. They never significantly mixed with other populations. For tens of thousands of years, they never encountered another human population in any sustained or meaningful way. When geneticists meticulously compared the Andamanese genome to ancient DNA samples from across South Asia, they made a truly remarkable discovery. The Andamanese are the closest living genetic match to the original modern humans who first populated Asia. They are not merely isolated, they are a living, breathing window into what humanity genuinely looked like 50,000 years ago, existing before the profound transformations of the great agricultural revolutions, before the monumental rise of cities, and critically, before any of the extensive genetic mixing. Their physical features compellingly narrate the same ancient story. Short stature, dark skin, tightly curled hair, and a distinct body chemistry uniquely adapted to tropical island life. The Sentinelese, arguably the most famous and fiercely protected of these tribes, reside on North Sentinel Island and have unequivocally rejected all attempts at outside contact. They have famously fired arrows at every helicopter, boat, and person that has dared to approach their pristine shores. In 2018, a young American missionary named John Allen Chow tragically attempted to land on the island and was killed within minutes of setting foot ashore. The Indian government has since implemented a strict prohibition against all approach to the island, wisely recognizing that the Sentinelese possess no immunity to modern diseases. The Sentinelese likely number perhaps 50 to 150 individuals. The Jarawa population is estimated to be around 400. The Onge have been tragically reduced to fewer than 120. And the great Andamanese, who suffered the most catastrophic losses from British colonial contact in the 1800s, now number fewer than 50 souls. These precious groups are not merely the genetically purest humans on Earth. They are also among the rarest, the most endangered, and profoundly the most fragile. What truly shocked the Stanford scientists was not solely the fact that the Andamanese topped the ranking. It was rather the profound revelations their DNA offered about the rest of us. By meticulously comparing the Andamanese genome to every other population on the list, researchers were able to reconstruct the intricate migration patterns of early modern humans with unprecedented precision and clarity. The Andamanese, in a profound sense, hold the genetic key to unlocking and understanding who everyone else ultimately became. Every European trace of Neanderthal DNA, every Asian connection to Denisovan ancestry, every African genetic adaptation to malaria, every Native American link to ancient Siberian hunters. All of these complex genetic narratives make far more sense and come into sharper focus when measured against the pristine baseline of the Andamanese genome. And here lies the final, often uncomfortable, truth that the Stanford study so powerfully unveiled. There is no such thing as a pure race in the modern political or social sense. The populations found at the very top of this ranking are genetically distinct precisely because their ancestors were, in essence, trapped and isolated by immense oceans, by impassable mountains, by dense jungles. Every other human population on Earth is, without exception, the magnificent product of mixing. Massive, constant, sometimes violent, sometimes peaceful, but always ongoing mixing. The English, the Spanish, the Russians, Americans, the people of India, the Chinese, Iranians, all of them are revealed to be beautiful, complicated, and deeply layered mosaics, intricately woven from every group that ever passed through. Today, the Andamanese continue to live on their islands, mostly invisible to the wider world, surviving, adapting, living. The rest of us, scattered across continents, are the undeniable proof that humanity has always been in motion. Ponder that profound reality. In this very generation, more humans are crossing borders, falling in love across cultures, and producing genetically blended children than at any other point in recorded history. The science is unequivocally clear. The purest among us are the ones who stayed still, and the rest of us are the endlessly fascinating story of what it truly means to be human. Next video.